It hurts so much to see him be a good father to others when I didn't really get that much.
He tried to call me back, tell me happy birthday and make up for it. And that's the last time I ever talked to my dad.
I do tend to dislike him a little bit.
Gwendlyn. He wasn't home very often. He'd be home like once a week, honestly, and so I didn't see him very much.
Robyn is upholding this patriarchy that he seems to think
I
that
just
is
was going to check in with you.
I don't know. Kind of do as the slave driver says.
Sister wives shocker. Brown kids unite against Kody. Family meeting goes nuclear. The Brown children just did something unprecedented. For the first time in Sister Wives history, the kids have banded together, and they're confronting Kody in a massive family meeting that nobody saw coming. Accusations are flying, tears are flowing, and the family patriarch is facing a united front that's been building for years. What happens when 18 children finally say enough is enough? You're about to find out, and it's absolutely explosive. Why now? Something has fundamentally shifted in the Brown family dynamic, and it all came to a head in what insiders are calling the most intense family meeting in Sister Wives history. After years of watching their mothers leave, their family splinter, and their father prioritize one household over all others, the Brown children have reached their breaking point. This isn't about typical family disagreements or teenage rebellion. This is about 18 adult and near-adult children, spanning 4 different mothers and 3 decades, coming together with a unified message. Dad, we need to talk about what you've done to this family. The catalyst? It's been building for years, but recent events pushed the situation past the point of no return. Janelle's new relationship and home purchase, Christine thriving in Utah, the ongoing Coyote Pass disaster, and most critically, Kody's increasingly obvious favoritism toward Robyn's children have created a powder keg of resentment that finally exploded. Gabriel Brown, one of Janelle's sons, reportedly initiated the gathering, having publicly struggled with his relationship with Kody. Particularly during COVID when his father essentially abandoned Janelle's household, Gabe decided it was time for all the siblings to have a real conversation, not just with each other, but directly with Kody. The meeting was arranged under the guise of a family reunion, but everyone knew what was really happening. This was an intervention. This was a reckoning. This was years of pain, abandonment, and broken promises finally being addressed head-on. Who showed up? The United Front understanding who attended, and crucially, who didn't, tells you everything about the current state of the Brown family. According to sources close to the situation, here's how the attendance broke down. Christine's children, almost all present Aspen, Michael T., Paedon, Gwendlyn, Ysabel, and truly all either attended in person or connected virtually. These 6 represent some of Kody's most estranged relationships, particularly after watching their mother finally choose herself and leave the plural marriage. Paedon, who has been outspoken about his father's failures, was reportedly one of the most vocal participants. Gwendlyn, who's built a following discussing the family's dysfunction, came prepared with receipts. Janelle's children, the wounded warriors Logan, Madison, Hunter, Gabriel, and Savannah. These 6 have experienced perhaps the most dramatic shift in their father's attention. They remember when Kody was present, engaged, and active in their lives. They've watched him become a stranger who can't even maintain basic relationships with his own sons. Gabe, in particular, have been open about the pain of their father's absence during critical years. Meri's daughter, the complicated position Leon, formerly Mariah, attended but occupies a unique space in this drama. As Meri's only child and Kody's first child, Leon has watched their parents' spiritual marriage dissolve while maintaining relationships across the family. Their perspective offers a 3-decade view of how things have deteriorated. Robyn's children, the absences that speak volumes, here's where it gets telling. Dayton, Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, and Ariella were notably absent from this confrontation. Whether Robyn prevented their attendance, Kody kept them away, or the older children chose not to participate, their absence reinforced exactly what the meeting was about. The 2-tiered system where Robyn's kids are protected and prioritized while everyone else is expendable. The fact that children from 3 different mothers unified, while Robyn's kids remained separate, is perhaps the most damning evidence of the family's fracture. The accusations. What was said when the meeting began? There was an attempt at civility. But that lasted approximately 10 minutes before the floodgates opened and years of suppressed feelings came pouring out. According to multiple sources who've heard accounts from attendees, here are the major accusations leveled at Kody. The abandonment charge. Led primarily by Janelle's sons, this accusation focused on Kody's physical and emotional absence during critical years. Gabe reportedly confronted his father about the COVID period when Kody chose to stay almost exclusively with Robyn, missing birthdays, holidays, and everyday moments with his other children. You had a choice every single day about where to be and who to prioritize, and you chose them every time. One child reportedly said, the pain evident in every word. The favoritism accusation. This was the big one, and it came from multiple children across different mothers. They pointed out the obvious. Robyn's children receive more time, more financial support, more emotional energy, and more consideration than anyone else. While Kody was building a mansion with Robyn, his other children were watching their mothers struggle with basic housing. While he was attending every event for Robyn's kids, he was missing milestone after milestone for everyone else. The financial grievance. Several adult children raised concerns about money, specifically how family resources have been distributed. They questioned why the Coyote Pass property sits undeveloped with mounting debt while Kody and Robyn live in a large, expensive home. They asked about contributions their mothers made to family finances over the years and where that money went. These questions made Kody visibly uncomfortable, sources say. The broken promises. This was perhaps the most emotional segment. Multiple children brought up specific promises Kody had made over the years and never kept. Ysabel talked about him promising to be there for her surgery, then backing out. Others mentioned promises about the family staying together, about building homes at Coyote Pass, about maintaining relationships even if marriages ended. You taught us that a man's word is his bond, one child reportedly said. So, what does it say that you've broken almost every promise you've made to us? The deflection pattern. Several children called out Kody's tendency to blame their mothers for relationship problems rather than taking accountability himself. They pointed out that blaming Christine for turning the kids against him or accusing Janelle of not supporting the family rules doesn't explain why he stopped showing up long before their mothers left. If the children hoped this confrontation would lead to accountability and healing, they were disappointed. According to attendees, Kody's response followed a predictable pattern that only confirmed many of the accusations being made against him. Initial denial. Kody's first reaction was to deny the accusations outright. He insisted he's always been a present father, that he's tried to maintain relationships with all his children equally, and that any distance between them is due to their choices, not his. This denial was met with stunned silence from children who have documented evidence to the contrary. Blaming the mothers. When denial didn't work, Kody pivoted to his familiar scapegoat, the mothers. He suggested that Christine poisoned her children against him. He implied that Janelle didn't support his authority in the home, leading to his son's disrespect. He even made comments suggesting Meri's parenting contributed to their estrangement. Notably, he had nothing negative to say about Robyn's parenting, a fact that didn't go unnoticed. The victim. Narrative. Kody then shifted into portraying himself as the victim of a conspiracy. He suggested that the mothers had coordinated this attack against him, that his children were being manipulated, and that he was the real injured party in this situation. I've sacrificed everything for this family, he reportedly said, a statement that was met with audible scoffs from multiple children. Anger and intimidation. When his other tactics failed, Kody's frustration manifested as anger. Sources say he raised his voice, pointed fingers, and attempted to intimidate his children into backing down. But here's what he didn't anticipate. These aren't small children anymore. They were adults, processing their trauma, many through therapy, and they weren't going to be silenced. The ultimate deflection. Kody's final defense was claiming that plural marriage is inherently difficult and that his children's expectations are unrealistic. He suggested they don't understand the complexities of maintaining multiple households and relationships. This argument fundamentally missed the point. They weren't criticizing plural marriage as a concept. They were criticizing his execution of it and his blatant favoritism. The most powerful moment of the meeting, according to those present, came when the children stopped arguing and started sharing their pain. This wasn't about winning a debate. It was about being heard, perhaps for the first time. Ysabel reportedly broke down discussing her scoliosis surgery, which Kody didn't attend despite promising to be there. At 17 years old, she underwent major spinal surgery without her father present, a wound that clearly hasn't healed. "I needed my dad, and you chose not to come," she said through tears. Kody had no adequate response. Garrison shared about feeling like he lost his father during COVID and never got him back. The relationship they once had, fishing trips, projects together, daily interactions, vanished and was never restored. "You were my hero," he reportedly said. "And then you just weren't there anymore." Gwendlyn brought receipts, as only Gwendlyn would. With years of documenting family dysfunction, she had dates, quotes, and specific examples that made it impossible for Kody to gaslight his way out of accountability. Her methodical presentation of facts reportedly left Kody speechless. Even some of the older children, who've had more time to process and move on, shared how their father's absences affected them. Madison discussed how Kody's lack of presence in her children's lives, his grandchildren, shows that the pattern continues. Logan, often seen as the golden child who escaped dysfunction by leaving early, admitted that he created distance intentionally to protect himself from the pain of disappointing his father. Throughout the meeting, one name kept coming up even when not explicitly mentioned: Robyn. The children were diplomatic in how they discussed their father's fourth wife, but the implications were clear. The family's deterioration accelerated after Robyn joined, and Kody's behavior shifted dramatically. Several children reportedly asked directly, "Why do Robyn's kids get a different father than we got?" They pointed out that Solomon and Ariella have experienced consistent presence, attention, and prioritization that most of them never received, even when the family was supposedly together. Kody's inability to answer this question honestly was glaring. He couldn't acknowledge the favoritism without admitting fault, but he also couldn't deny it because the evidence is overwhelming. His attempts to explain it away, claiming Robyn's children are younger and need more attention, or that their household follows his rules better, only confirmed what the other children already knew. There are two classes of Brown children, and they're in the lower one. Some children also addressed how Robyn has influenced Kody's parenting decisions. They pointed out instances where Robyn's concerns or preferences seem to override everyone else's needs. While being careful not to make it solely about Robyn, Kody is responsible for his own choices. They made it clear that his fourth marriage has come at the expense of his other relationships. The meeting ended without resolution. There was no tearful reconciliation, no moment where Kody took full accountability, no promises that anyone believed would be kept. Instead, it ended with exhaustion, disappointment, and for many of the children, a sense of closure that came not from healing, but from finality. Multiple children reportedly left feeling that they'd said everything they needed to say, whether Kody heard it or not. They'd hoped for accountability, but prepared for defensiveness, and their preparations were necessary. The meeting confirmed what many had already accepted. Their father isn't capable of the self-reflection and change required to repair these relationships. For some, this represents the end of actively pursuing a relationship with Kody. They're moving from hurt to acceptance, from longing for a better father to building lives that don't revolve around his approval or presence. It's a painful transition, but one many view as necessary for their own mental health. Others are leaving the door open, but with very different expectations. They're no longer waiting for Kody to become the father they need. Instead, they're accepting him as he is, limited, flawed, and unlikely to change, and deciding what level of relationship, if any, works for them given that reality. The siblings, however, emerged more united than ever. The meeting reinforced bonds between children from different mothers who've watched each other's pain and recognized their shared experience. They're creating their own version of family, one that doesn't require Kody's presence or approval. What this means, this confrontation represents a seismic shift in the sister wives narrative. For years, the show focused on the wives' relationships with Kody and with each other. Now, the next generation is asserting their voice, their pain, and their perspective, and it's damning. These children are the ultimate judges of whether plural marriage, as practiced by the Browns, was successful. They lived it. They experienced it from the inside. And their verdict is clear: it failed them. Not because plural marriage is inherently wrong, but because their father couldn't manage the responsibility he took on when he spiritually married 4 women and fathered 18 children. Their willingness to confront Kody publicly, assuming this plays out on camera, also changes the show's dynamic. Sister wives can no longer ignore or minimize the children's perspectives. These are adults with their own platforms, their own voices, and their own versions of events. Some, like Gwendlyn and Paedon, are already sharing their truths online with growing audiences. For viewers who've watched since the beginning, seeing these children, many of whom were young kids in early seasons, now holding their father accountable is both heartbreaking and powerful. It's the natural conclusion to storylines that have been building for years. This family meeting won't be the end of this saga. In fact, it's likely just the beginning of a new chapter. Here's what we can expect. Continued estrangement, unless Kody undergoes a dramatic transformation, unlikely. His relationships with most of his children will remain strained or severed. The meeting likely hardened positions rather than softening them. Public discussion. As this story gets out through the show, social media, or interviews, the children will continue sharing their perspectives. The narrative Kody has controlled for years is no longer his alone to shape. Family realignment. The Brown family is reorganizing into new structures. Christine's children are building their own tight-knit unit in Utah. Janelle's children are supporting each other through their father's absence. Cross-mother sibling relationships are strengthening. Meanwhile, Robyn's children remain somewhat isolated from this larger family dynamic. Financial reckoning. The questions raised about finances won't go away. As more children reach adulthood and gain perspective on how family resources were managed, expect more difficult conversations about money, property, and fairness. Therapeutic processing. Many of these children are already in therapy, working through the impact of growing up in a dysfunctional plural marriage. Their healing journeys will continue, with or without Kody's participation. The unanswered questions. Despite this explosive confrontation, many questions remain. Will Kody ever truly acknowledge his failures, or will he go to his grave believing he was a victim of ungrateful children and vindictive ex-wives? How do Robyn's children feel about being separated from their siblings, and will they eventually seek relationships with their half-siblings independent of their parents? What happens to the Kody Pass property, which symbolizes so much broken promise and wasted potential? Will any more children go public with their stories, following Paedon and Gwendlyn's lead? Most importantly, is there any path forward for healing in this family, or is this level of fracture permanent? The real tragedy, what could have been perhaps the saddest aspect of this entire situation, is thinking about what could have been. These children wanted to believe in their father. They wanted plural marriage to work. They tried to understand, to be patient, to give grace. They deserved a father who showed up consistently, not just for the easy moments, but for the hard ones. They deserved to feel like they mattered as much as their half-siblings. They deserved honesty when promises couldn't be kept, rather than gaslighting that made them question their own experiences. The Brown children aren't being unreasonable or demanding perfection. They're simply asking for basic respect, acknowledgement, and accountability. The fact that Kody can't or won't provide, even that speaks volumes. This massive family meeting represents the next generation's verdict on the Brown family experiment, and that verdict is harsh but honest. They're saying what needs to be said, even though it's painful. They're choosing truth over false peace. They're prioritizing their own healing over protecting their father's ego. For Sister Wives fans who've watched these kids grow up on screen, this moment feels both inevitable and heartbreaking. We've seen the dysfunction build. We've watched Kody's priorities shift. We've witnessed the wives' pain and, by extension, understood the children's pain. The Brown kids uniting against their father isn't a betrayal. It's a last-ditch effort to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. It's 18 children saying in unison, "We deserve better and we're not going to pretend otherwise anymore." Whether this confrontation leads to any real change, of course, remains to be seen. Yet one thing is clear. The Brown children have found their voices, and they're not going to be silenced.